Hey everybody, this is Shaine Mata. Today is Good Friday 2020, and I haven't done a video in a while, so I thought I would come on and record something. This is more of a journal than anything informative or news or anything like that. It's more of my own thoughts and reflections at this time. So the idea is, let's see, I'm going to talk a little bit about the pandemic that's going on right now. Of course, it's on my mind and everybody's mind. Second one is on the future as relates to this pandemic, because there's a lot of economic changes that I'm expecting to come up, and I've got some concerns and thoughts of opportunities coming up. And also, the third thing is about Bitcoin. I've been looking at Bitcoin for a while, and have been I'm investing in it. Although today or last night I sold everything and got out because, well, I'll tell you later. So in any case, let's talk about the pandemic. So this is Easter. We're not doing anything on Easter. Sundays is Easter. There will be no Easter egg hunts, no barbecues, no nothing like that. So that's something that's kind of foreign, I guess, to a lot of people, to not have stuff to do with the family, go outside. You can't even barbecue really, because I suppose I could throw out some hamburger patties and hot dogs and stuff for the house, or some chicken or something, but it's not going to be we're not inviting anybody over, right? It's going to be us here at home. But in any case, in our home, I think the biggest concern is not so much like Alma, for example. That's Mrs. Mata. She's not too worried about herself getting sick, and I think in my case, I'm not too worried about me getting sick personally, as far as like the suffering, because the reality is that most people are going to be fine. There's some people who are going to get infected who will have no symptoms. There's going to be people who will get infected who have mild symptoms, and some people who get infected who are going to be sick in bed for a while, and then others who is just going to take a bad turn and get pneumonia. And of course, that's not a good thing. But the thing is, as a parent, you're not so mindful about yourself getting sick. You're more mindful about your kids getting sick and seeing them suffer through something that's unpleasant. And I think that's Alma's main concern, and mine to some extent. Also, there's an economic cost to that, because imagine that I've heard and seen stories about people who have a B blood type, who are more susceptible to the... Let me take a picture real quick. Oops. That's not working. Anyway, so people who are more susceptible to the pandemic, and they basically don't do very well. They get really sick, and so you can imagine the toll that could take on a family if everybody in the family gets sick, because they'll have, for the most part, they may have the same blood types, right? And so imagine having 3 or 4 family members in the hospital for a week or 2 weeks trying to get over the illness, being in intensive care. Even if you have insurance, just the copay alone is enough, especially if you've lost your work. It's going to be rough financially. And so that's not something that you don't want to take a chance on getting sick if you don't know, especially what blood type you are. And if you have the possibility of getting laid off, or just losing your job entirely, how do you deal with that? That's a big concern, is financially. You might survive, but then how are you going to survive afterwards once you get out? They'll feed you in the hospital, but who's going to feed you when you're outside? Where are you going to find work? So these are concerns that we ought to have. Practical concerns, I would say, in that maybe you will get sick and you'll be fine. You'll have a fever for a couple of days and get over it, but you'll be out for a few days, and then once you're infectious, you can't really go back to work because then you're going to get other people infected, you know? And so you'll be out of work for a while, stuff like that. So, excuse me, I'm having some adult beverage here. So, those are some of the thoughts that I have. And it's not, again, it's not like I'm worried, like I stay up at night thinking about it or whatever. Because me personally, I'm not a touchy-feely kind of guy. So I've never really done the hugs. I don't really care for the handshaking. I'll do it as, you know, to be polite and as a business thing, but it's not necessarily something that comes to me naturally. I do it because everybody else does it. So I think I'll be fine, I think. I tend to wash my hands and also tend to use sanitizer, keep my distance from people, stuff like that. And I think for the most part, historically, I'm not saying that it's been 100%, but historically, I've not been the sickly kind. I don't get flus every year. I don't get colds too often. And so I think part of that is because I'm naturally, yes, with you. I think part of that is because I naturally don't touch people, and I try to keep to myself. Okay. So that's where, that's why I think probably most likely, based on history, I should be fine. But of course, why take chances, right? Because it could be financially costly to get sick. Now, fortunately for me, in my job, they've made allowances to take time off for that sort of thing. I think as far as the government goes, we get 2 weeks off in which we're able to take them off for COVID, and it's covered without having to dip into our sick days. But even then, I have a ton of sick days because, again, I tend to not do the hugging and kissing stuff. So I've been, you know, accumulating sick days like crazy. So, you know, knock on wood. There's no wood around here. I don't want to get sick because even when I do get sick, it's pretty miserable. It's not easy. I mean, it's kind of rough. But you know, usually it takes 3 or 4 days, and I'm back at work and I'm fine. You know. So, anyways, those are my thoughts on the pandemic right now. So that naturally leads to the thoughts of financial stuff. You know, because I know a lot of people are getting laid off. They're losing their jobs, and there's no end in sight for when we're going to go back to work. It could be weeks. It could be months, actually. See, the thing is that if we're successful in slowing down and straightening out the curve a little bit, all that does is stretch out the suffering. Versus if we had a steep curve, yeah, a lot of people would be stuck without medical care, good medical care, or the hospitals would be swamped. But on the other hand, most of it would have been over quicker. So we're stretching out the curve, and they're already thinking about stretching out from April 30th, the stay-at-home orders, to sometime in May. What if it goes into July? You know. So it's not looking good in that respect as far as the economy being able to bounce back, because you know most people don't have $400, $500 to get through a month. You know, to just emergency savings. And try to get unemployment right now. The websites are overwhelmed. Try getting to the phone, you know, talking to somebody. Things are pretty dire, and the reality is that it's going to be rough out there. Another drink here. So take, for example, if you rent and you're out of work, that means that you have at the most a month or two to get by without paying rent. If you have a house, if you pay a mortgage, you might be able to get by a little bit longer, because it takes a while to foreclose on a house. And right now, the banks might not have an appetite to foreclose quite yet, because it's just bad optics. But at some point, they're gonna have to foreclose. So you may have a few months to stay in your place if you own a home without paying your mortgage, but that's only going to get you so far before you have to look for a place. And based on 2008, there's going to be a lot of homes up for foreclosure. So anyways, going back to to paying your rent. So let's say you can't pay your rent. Now, a good business person, a good apartment owner, house owner, would have put in the contract that as soon as you're a few days late, they will begin the eviction process. And I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. Because you start letting people slide, it becomes a habit, and then before you know it, they're there for a couple months, and because you've allowed them to stay that long, then they automatically have rights then at that point. So the proper thing to do is to evict you, start the process within days of you being late, and get you out. Now, that still doesn't get the rent paid for that month on that property. And let's say the landlord has a mortgage on the property. So now they don't have the rent coming in to pay the mortgage. So if we're doing a trace route, if you're into IT stuff, the trace route kind of gives you the path from your computer to a server or to another computer somewhere. It gives you the path, all the routers that your traffic has to bounce through to get to where you need to go. So let's do the trace route on this. Let's say then we get from your landlord not being able to pay the mortgage. Well, then if they lose the property, right, what happens to the people who are living there? The bank might allow the tenants to stay there as long as they're paying rent, but banks typically are not very good at managing properties. They'd rather not manage properties. They'd rather manage, let me get that out of the way. They would rather manage money, accounts, finances, stuff like that. So I don't know. So for a while, the 2008, I mentioned that earlier, the 2008 crisis, there were houses still that were bank owned as late as this past year, because they were not in a rush to sell the properties, because then it would crush the market, the real estate market. So the real estate market was starting to pick up. It's back in the dumps again. So you're gonna expect, if you were thinking about selling your home, if you were thinking about selling your property, prices are gonna go down. That's just the way it's gonna be. People's credit's gonna be trashed, because you can only go so long without a job and putting stuff in your credit cards and making the minimum payment before it becomes a problem. And at some point of doing that, you're not going to be able to make your credit card payments, and there goes your credit. So if your credit goes, you can't really buy a car, or it makes it difficult. You're gonna have to buy a used car somewhere where your paycheck is your credit. Good luck being able to buy a home. Some places that rent apartment complexes will check your credit as well. It's not looking pretty. So I am really concerned about the future of the country, of the world, actually. Now, I think some of the problems are first world problems. If you've lived in a ghetto and are living day to day already, things might get a little bit tougher. But you've already hustled. You already know how to make a living, trying to get by. If you're poor already, this is nothing different. It's just another day. Hey, give me my here, hold my beer, that sort of thing. So it's not that much of a struggle, but for everybody else who's used to a certain standard of living, I think we're gonna have to. Some people have to lower your standards. That's just the way it's gonna be, for a while at least. Now, there is some hope, however, but it's gonna require you changing the way you do things. So the problem right now is not that there isn't work. There's work that needs to be done. People need their food delivered. People need people to do stuff for them, like mow their lawn. People need somebody to watch the kids, stuff like that. What there isn't, excuse me, what there isn't is jobs. There's not enough cash out there for you to have somebody on payroll and pay them every week, every day. But there's enough work out there that if you're willing to do gigs, a little thing here, a little thing there, $5 here, $10 there, it adds up. You know, it'll slow the decline. It'll help you get by to the next day. Doing Uber, doing deliveries, doing favors for your neighbors. You know, your neighbor's not going to let you starve. They're gonna, if they can't pay you cash, they'll give you some food, or they'll help you, you know, with your water bill or something. But the point is that if you forget about finding a job, let's say you've already lost your job, there's a lot of opportunity out there to still get by with, you know, a little bit of cash here and there. At least you'll be able to buy something to eat and get by to the next day. And if you're willing to hustle and go out there, and maybe not go out there because you might get arrested, but if you're willing to hustle and, you know, make some phone calls and do favors for people, they will most likely help you out with a few bucks here and there, and everybody will help each other out. There will be this, what you might call a gray economy. So there's a black market, there's just the regular market, and there's a gray market where things aren't always, they're not illegal, but they're not exactly on the books either. You know, like the flea market, for example, that's a gray market where people make money, but it's not really on the books, you know. So stuff like that, I think, will make a resurgence for a while until the economy gets back on its feet. So that's where I see things going for now. Now, if you're not, there's no transition between this and Bitcoin, but I've been looking at Bitcoin, and I had Bitcoin for a little bit. I started buying into it, but then I've been reading reports that right now there's a rope-a-dope coming up, because in May, sometime in May, there is a halving in which, so computers right now are turning out 1,000 and something Bitcoin per year, and that's going to be cut in half to about 900 Bitcoin per year. So a lot of miners are going to get out of the business. They're gonna sell their stake and, you know, cash out basically. And also, exchanges make money by you know, every time you buy and sell your tokens, they make a little bit of money, and they also make money by you using leverage to buy extra. So let's say you have $5 and you want to buy $20. You borrow the other money to get $20 worth of the Bitcoin, and then if the price goes down, then what they'll do is they'll cash you out. They'll sell your stake and keep your money and keep their money too. So it was a very cheap, I don't know if it's a cheap way to do it, but basically it's a way for them to keep money, to make money that you wouldn't have given up otherwise. So there is some incentive for exchanges to force you to liquidate your position when you have leverage. So I think that's what's going to happen in the halving, is that exchanges are going to bet against their investors, the retail investors, and take a lot of their investments. So it's not a good time to buy right now. I think I'm just going to let, even the price is going down. Yesterday, or starting last night, the price started going down, and it hasn't recovered. It's still going down. So I think we'll probably see that, and we may see anywhere in the $4,000 range of Bitcoin. Yesterday it was in the $7,000 range. Today it's, so I think before the halving or after the halving, we may see it as low as 4,000, or maybe we saw it last time when it crashed. It was about 3,800 as the lowest. So I think there's a crash brewing by people who want to take advantage of the situation and make some money. After the halving, I think it's safe to start buying Bitcoin and move up, buy positions slowly as the price goes up. And I think after this, you probably will see that Bitcoin does become everything that it was, that it has been hoped that it could be. So we may see possibly $20,000 Bitcoin by 2022, or more or less. Possibility, you never know. I think there's been movements by the governments to make a digital currency, and I see XRP as profiting or being part of that digital currency. So there's opportunity out there, and with the, I'm not going to go into the economics of it, but so I'm looking at stuff like that, and the reason that I'm looking at it is because again, looking at the future, the economic future, I don't see money as holding up very well. With trillions of dollars being printed and just put out there, the value of money just isn't. I don't have faith that it's going to be there for too long, the way that it is now. And was that the right word to say? The right word to say it? I don't have faith that it will be worth as much in the future as it is today. And typically that's true because of inflation, but I think that it's going to take an extra, or it's going to be worth, the rate of decline is going to be more in the coming days than it has been in the past. We've had an inflation of about 2%. I think it's going to be much higher coming in the future. So it's going to cost more to buy the same things. And I have some thoughts on that, which we'll do for another video. As far as that goes, is for that our economy is deflationary, but we're kind of fighting the deflation. Our economy is deflationary because of technology. Technology makes it cheaper to buy stuff. The same thing so you can make stuff cheaper, and the government has been fighting deflation for the longest time when it's the natural thing to do. But well, anyways, that's another video. So, hey guys, I just want to get those out of the way, get some of these thoughts out of the way, and just do a journal entry. I'm gonna probably put this up on YouTube and 3Speak. I'm not sure where else is a good place to put this, but hey, listen, if you're watching, this wasn't meant to be something that for an audience. This was more of a journal, and me talking to myself, and maybe family members who are interested in what I have to say. The reality is that I have trouble talking to people about this because I start talking about these things and then their eyes get glossy and then it's over. So, so yeah, I think I'll stop it here. So hey, thanks for watching. This is Shaine Mata. We'll see you again, maybe tomorrow. We've got plenty of time. It's Easter Sunday, or Easter Friday. Today's Good Friday. Tomorrow's Saturday. We got Sunday. So I've got at least a couple videos of me. I'll talk to you soon.